Chapter 452 to 453. Today was really exhausting. A Konoha Chunin who was walking in the direction of his home said while taking a puff of smoke from the lit cigarette he held with his index finger and middle finger. The companion who was walking on the side said, "Fortunately, the alliance ceremony went without a hitch, and no one caused any trouble. Konoha's incredibly tight security naturally did not come without a price. In addition to the Konoha military police force, the workload on many genin and chunin also increased a lot to make sure that the alliance ceremony went without any obstructions." The chunin who was smoking threw the cigarette butt on the ground at this time, stepped on it in order to extinguish the spark, then said, "It's already so late. I don't think that anything major will happen now." As soon as he said so, a shadow swooped on him from behind and made a few precise jabs on the back of his neck. "WH?" were his last words before he lost consciousness and collapsed on the ground. Someone wants to take advantage of the night and cause chaos? Was the thought of the other chunin as he tried to launch the signal flare. But before he could, he suddenly felt a tremendous force on his abdomen causing him to vomit out some fluids. His body arched under the huge force and he too lost consciousness. "They are unexpectedly weak," muttered Kimimaro with a doubtful expression. The young age and the lack of adequate experience, as well as the simplicity of his mind, have made Kimimaro's conception of the outside world very limited and completely dependent on the narrations of Orochimaru and Kabuto, as well as the few battles he has had against strong fellows. Although Kimimaro knows that he is quite strong based on what Kabuto has told him, how strong to be exact, Kimimaro is not so sure. Both Kabuto and Orochimaru know that Kimimaro is already reaching the level of a jonin, and when using the curse seal, his strength might as well be on the level of an elite jonin. So, no matter which village, he already belongs to the elite class. This is the main reason why Kabuto has some confidence in Kimimaro's abilities at being able to assassinate Hyuga Kuroto, and also the reason why Orochimaru did not stop Kimimaro. After dragging the two Konoha Chunin inside an alleyway and tying them up, Kimimaro again checked the map to discern the right direction. Then his figure flashed and disappeared into the direction of the Hyuga clan, but not before changing his appearance into that of one of the Chunin with the use of transformation jutsu. Of course, Kimimaro did not notice the lone crow sitting on top of an electric pillar, who has been following him silently and observing everything that he has been doing. Running all the way, Kimimaro arrived near the compound of the Hyuga clan and thought, based on what Kabuto has told me, if I have to go from here on out, then I must transform my appearance into that of a Hyuga clan shinobi. This is the only way, else I would be noticed by their Byakugan. With this thought, Kimimaro used transformation jutsu upon himself to change his appearance into that of a Hyuga Kuroto, and then proceeded in the direction of Hyuga Kuroto's home. Fortunately, it was already past midnight, so there was hardly anyone present on the streets, and those Hyuga guards who noticed him recognized him to be Kuroto-sama, so chose not to disturb him. After passing through a few blocks, Kimimaro gently landed on the roof of a house and made sure to not make even a bit of sound, neither from his footsteps nor from the creaking of wood. Standing on the roof, Kimimaro scanned the house in front of him and the nearby streets with a cold expression. According to the information given to him, the house in front of him is undoubtedly Hyuga Kuroto's house. "I will make sure to end your life today." After secretly making up his mind, Kimimaro covertly crossed the street and sneaked into the courtyard of Kuroto's house. He stayed hidden inside the canopy of the small tree for a few minutes, silently observed the surroundings, and perked up his ears, while trying to listen to any sound that came from inside the house. But even after a lot of waiting, nothing except for smooth rhythmic breathing came, which can only mean one thing. Kimimaro was now certain that Hyuga Kuroto was most likely asleep on the first floor of his house and no one else was present at his house, which means Kimimaro's presence was not noticed by anyone, including Hyuga Kuroto. With that understood, Kimimaro exerted strength into both of his legs, then jumped up and sneaked inside the room on the first floor from the open window. Although the lights in the room were switched off, the moonlight coming from outside the window was bright enough for Kimimaro to clearly see everything inside the room. You are awake?" Kimimaro was taken aback. He can be quite sure that he heard rhythmic breathing coming from this room. But now he sees that Hyuga Kuroto is sitting on a chair facing the window, and there is no one else in the room. What's more frustrating is that Hyuga Kuroto is sitting leisurely with his right arm on the armrest of the chair, and his head resting on the right arm, giving off a strange feeling as if he was expecting a visit. Looking at Kimimaro, Kuroto muttered with a faint smile, "It seems that my luck hasn't yet run out completely." Kuroto's entire purpose of mocking Orochimaru on the street was to lure Kimimaro to his house. The purpose is obviously to obtain Kimimaro's cells. Obito's sudden action of taking back his eye from Kakashi has also put a lot of pressure on Kuroto. Therefore, he must do everything in order to speed up his project godhood. However, if Kuroto were to take initiative to find Orochimaru and ask for Kimimaro's cells, then obviously he would have to give something in return too. At the same time, he will be able to figure out a few things. Therefore, Kuroto used this approach. He stimulated Kimimaro to come to Kuroto's house on his own initiative, of course, since the security in the village is so tight. So Kuroto wasn't exactly sure if Kimimaro would dare to sneak into his house. But he did, and it means that Kuroto's plan worked. As for the matter of obtaining information on Kagaya Takashi, it was just an excuse Kuroto made up to make sure that his subordinates of Team Ro who are keeping a watch over the Otogekure squad under Kuroto's instructions don't stop Kimimaro. If Kuroto really wants information on Kagaya Takashi, then Yonde Mizukage is a better option. But using this excuse is also believable and enough of a reason for Hokage-sama to ignore this matter. Otherwise, it would have been impossible for Kimimaro to sneak up to Kuroto's house. At this time, Kimimaro also realized something and said, "So you were prepared?" He soon recovered from the shocked expression as a bone blade extended out from the palm of his hand, and said coldly, "That's good then. I too want to have a fair fight with you. Ignorant kid. There is no such thing as a fair fight in this shinobi world. If you do see a fair fight, then it's all just someone's manipulations. Either you are capable of noticing those manipulations and act accordingly, or you remain ignorant and still act accordingly," said Kuroto and tapped the fingers of his left hand on the armrest of the chair he sat on. "What do you mean?" Kimimaro frowned, but not caring about whatever nonsense Hyuga Kuroto was spouting. Kimimaro crouched down a little, in order to rush towards Hyuga Kuroto. But as he did so, Kimimaro was shocked to find out that his body is trapped and he can't even take a single step forward. He looked downwards to see the cause only to notice that the ground has unknowingly come to life and risen upwards, encasing his feet up to his waist inside it, as a result restricting his movements. When did he use Earth-style jutsu to trap me? Kimimaro can't help but frown again because he did not even notice Hyuga Kuroto using any hand signs. Nor did he notice any chakra fluctuations from the surroundings. "I mean exactly what I said anyway. Now that I have you as my prisoner, I can do anything with you," said Kuroto in a wicked tone and licked his lips in the same manner that Orochimaru does. Kimimaro snorted, "Don't think that just this can stop me," and decided to make some bones sprout out of his legs and break the ground that is trapping him. But strangely enough, not even a single bone came out. Now Kimimaro had to take this seriously. "What's going on? As I said, you are now a prisoner of mine, and obviously I can't allow a prisoner of mine to be able to use chakra now, can I?" said Kuroto and pointed at Kimimaro's chest. "Look at your chest." Kimimaro looked down and noticed black symbols appearing all over his body. And these symbols were sealing his chakra. "Can you seal my chakra without even weaving any hand seals or touching me?" Kimimaro asked after recovering from the shock of having his chakra sealed. "Who knows? I have no interest in answering questions of an ignorant fool like you," said Kuroto as he looked at Kimimaro's state with a provocative smirk. Kimimaro gritted his teeth and decided to use the curse seal of earth. Kuroto still sat on his chair and asked, "Are you sure that you want to go so far? Do you really think that your actions are concealed and no one has noticed you coming here?" Kimimaro said, "It doesn't matter what happens to me." Kuroto chuckled, then said, "Naive kid, you coming here can still be attributed to just a small conflict between you and me. But if you decide to use the curse seal implanted by him, then it would be noticed by Konoha as well as other shinobi villages. And they will realize that Otogekure is a shinobi village established by him. What do you think will happen then?" Kuroto's words made Kimimaro stop midway, and he was now considering the implication of Kuroto's words, upon realizing that he might create trouble for Orochimaru-sama. A hesitation flashed on Kimimaro's young face. Kimimaro is ready to bear everything, but he does not want to cause any trouble for Orochimaru-sama. Kuroto obviously knows this, so he said with a smirk, "Don't worry. As long as you answer all my questions, and do not make any unnecessary moves, you can safely go back to the guest house that you sneaked out from. Even he won't be implicated. How does that sound?" Kimimaro hesitated and asked, "And why do I trust your words?" Kuroto chuckled. "It's not like you have any other option. The fact that you dared to sneak here alone can create a lot of trouble for him. So now you are to follow everything I instruct you to do without any question, that is, if you want to go back safely and not cause any trouble for him, else I don't mind to instruct the umbu stationed around the guest house to act immediately and take him as a prisoner." Kimimaro snorted. "He will not be captured by those weaklings," Kuroto said with an evil grin. "Maybe, but are you sure that you want to take the chances? Trust me when I say this, but even if it is him, he will not be able to escape scot-free if you were to make even a single rash move." Looking at Hyuga Kuroto's face, and listening to his words, Kimimaro suddenly started to have a bad feeling in his heart. Kimimaro asked with a sigh, "Fine, what do you want?" Kuroto chuckled at the fact that Kimimaro finally gave in, and asked, "Information. I want information about the Kagaya clan and the shinobi named Kagaya Takashi, who has recently joined the Akatsuki organization." As said previously, Kuroto doesn't really want information on Kagaya Takashi, but to provide a cover to his real objective, he must ask this. Kimimaro frowned but understood that the question was reasonable. And given the fact that Akatsuki is an enemy of Orochimaru-sama too, so he complied and answered nonetheless. Although, the information he gave was not very useful as Kimimaro himself did not know very much about the Kagaya clan or Kagaya Takashi. So all the information he gave was based on his fight against Kagaya Takashi from a few days ago. Kuroto still paid a good amount of attention to Kimimaro, as there is a distinct possibility that Kimimaro as a member of the Kagaya clan might know something that Kuroto or the Yonde Mizukage are not aware of about the Kagaya clan. At the same time, a voice sounded in Kuroto's mind. Kuroto-sama, the Genjutsu is in perfect effect. Am I allowed to kill him? Oh right, did I mention that all of this discussion of mine was happening in a Genjutsu? If I didn't, then I guess now's the time to tell, thought Kuroto after he heard that voice. Then he also focused his attention on the real world. Real world. In the real world, Kimimaro is standing motionless with a dazed expression. Kimimaro has yet to realize that the moment he stepped inside Kuroto's house, he has been under a Genjutsu. Kuroto looked at Kimimaro, who is completely vulnerable at the moment. Kuroto nodded to himself, then looked at the person responsible for casting this Genjutsu on Kimimaro. I must say, the Genjutsu mastery of the three priestesses of Ryuchi Cave is indeed praiseworthy, said Kuroto with a bit of an impressed tone as he looked at the floating girl next to him. Nini Kuroto-sama, should I make him suffer mentally? Should I? Once he suffers a lot, his chakra will weaken and it will be on the verge of disappearance. And just before he dies, I can eat all of his chakra. I love chakra which is weak and is about to disappear. Ichikishima Haim asked in an excited tone as some of her snake characteristics appeared on her face and she licked her lips, greedy for eating Kimimaro's chakra. Kuroto immediately shook his head. No, he has to be kept alive. Ichikishima Haim seemed a bit dejected by Kuroto's refusal, but she quickly regained her cheerfulness and started to float around Kimimaro, observing his unique features. Since the Genjutsu used by Ichikishima Haim is based on the use of natural energy, therefore it can be classified as a Senjutsu. Therefore, breaking out of it is an extremely difficult task, not to mention breaking out, even realizing that one is subjected to a Genjutsu is an extremely difficult task unless they are experienced enough with Genjutsu. Although not as strong as the Genjutsu used by the combined effort of the two great sage toads of Mount Myaboku, which is capable of trapping even the Rinnegan and Tenseigan bearers, it is still one of the strongest Genjutsu there is. This is why Kuroto isn't really worried about the possibility of Kimimaro realizing his current situation, or being able to break out of it. At this time, Ichikishima Haim, who was floating around Kimimaro, asked Kuroto with a curious tone. Since he is not here to be fed to me, then why is he here, Kuroto-sama? What do you want from this brat? Kuroto did not answer Ichikishima Haim, but took out a storage scroll and unsealed the contents inside it. The contents inside the storage scroll included several test tube injections, as well as other pieces of equipment necessary to collect cell samples. Since he is a prisoner of mine, so naturally he must pay some ransom to be released, don't you think, Ichikishima Haim? I am not going to kill him as he is of use to me, but I will take some of his cells to carry out tests and experiments, said Kuroto to Ichikishima Haim, then proceeded to collect Kimimaro's cell samples. Although Ichikishima Haim didn't really understand what experiments Kuroto-sama wants to conduct, it didn't really matter to her. As long as she is fed chakra, she doesn't care what Kuroto does. Normally, Ichikishima Haim likes to eat decaying chakra, the chakra that is on the verge of disappearance, which is why she usually traps her victims in a Genjutsu world and then makes them collapse mentally. But for some reason that even she doesn't understand, she likes to eat Kuroto's chakra too. Maybe it's because his chakra is indominant in nature. She can only think of this as the possible reason, as any other explanation doesn't make much sense. Oh well, it doesn't really matter anyway, but she doesn't really care too much about the exact reason either. On the other side, Kuroto considered that there wouldn't be many opportunities in the future, so he collected several times the normal and also made sure to take Kimimaro's blood samples, bone samples as well as hair samples, and then sealed them all in a storage scroll. After Kuroto was done in the real world, he focused his attention back on the Genjutsu world that Kimimaro was trapped in. Genjutsu world. By now, Kimimaro has also finished giving out all the information that he knew about the Kagaya clan and the shinobi named Kagaya Takashi. After Kimimaro was done, Kuroto in the Genjutsu world was silent for a while, then asked curiously, "By the way, is there anything unusual in your body?" Kimimaro frowned. "What do you mean by unusual?" Kuroto said, "In the sense that, have you been feeling any sudden weakness or unnatural paralyzing sensations in your body?" Kimimaro narrowed his eyes and asked, "How do you know?" Kagaya Takashi has told him about the curse of the Kagaya clan, but Kimimaro has yet to tell anyone about it. Even Yugo gave his words to Kimimaro that he won't talk about this to anyone, even to Orochimaru-sama unless Kimimaro instructs him to. Even before, Kimimaro did not mention anything about the curse of the Kagaya clan, because he did not want to give out information about his weakness. But the fact that Hyuga Kuroto knows about this has surprised him. Kuroto did not answer Kimimaro's question. Instead, he asked a question in return. What is Orochimaru-sama's theory about the cause of your illness? And what treatment is he using? Kimimaro's tone became heavier. I have yet to inform Orochimaru-sama about it. Kuroto was stunned, then said, It doesn't matter whether you have told him or not. He must have noticed that something is unusual with your body, but maybe he lacks the right information to be able to properly understand what it is. I advise you to tell him everything you know about your illness immediately. If he understands the true cause of your illness early enough, maybe you will be able to survive. You don't need to worry about my business or my well-being, said Kimimaro in a cold tone, although his expression said that he was seriously considering Kuroto's words. The reason why Kuroto advised Kimimaro is not because of his kindness or worry for Kimimaro, but to better understand Shikatsu Miyaku. At the same time, he also wants Orochimaru's research on this Kekei Genkai and the results he obtains while trying to figure out a way about how to cure the curse of the Kagaya clan. Kuroto knows that the true potential of Shikatsu Miyaku is very, very high, and traces back to Kagaya's use of all-killing ash bones, which is a Kekei Mora Jutsu. All-killing ash bones are even superior to the truth-seeking orbs when it comes to their potential. Just a single touch is enough to turn even the 6th level opponents into ashes. This is why Kuroto is very interested in it. And seeing that Kimimaro has taken his words seriously, Kuroto said nothing more, just released the seal on Kimimaro that was sealing his chakra, still in the Genjutsu world. At the same time, the ground that was encasing Kimimaro also retracted backward under Kuroto's command, still in Genjutsu world. Kuroto then said, "Alright then, since I have obtained what I wanted, you can go back now. Also, this is Konoha, so you better not run around like this time. The number of people in this village who are capable of killing you is more than several dozens. Once you are caught snooping around, even he won't be able to save you." Kimimaro snorted and jumped towards the window, and just before he left, he looked at Kuroto coldly and said, "This time I lost, but next time it won't be so easy for you. Hyuga Kuroto, you are a traitor, and I will definitely eliminate you." Kuroto just chuckled. "Is that so? In that case, I will wait." Kimimaro snorted and jumped out of the window and went back towards the guest house. Poor kid doesn't even realize that the entire time he was in my house, he was under a genjutsu, thought Kuroto, then shook his head. Kuroto knows that Kimimaro's potential is extremely high, but neither does he have any understanding of natural energy, nor any in-depth experience of genjutsu, so it was natural that in his normal state Kimimaro did not figure out that he is under a genjutsu. Of course, if Kimimaro had used Curse Seal, then he would have been able to sense that something is wrong and maybe be able to take countermeasures, but Kuroto of course did not allow Kimimaro to do so, as he wasn't interested in fighting a child. After Kimimaro was gone, Kuroto turned towards Ichikishima Haim and said, "You can also go back. I will summon you if I need you." Ichikishima Haim nodded, and just before disappearing in a poof of smoke, she did not forget to speak. "Don't forget to prepare prey for me, Kuroto-sama." Kuroto nodded, but not so seriously. Now with Kuroto left alone in the house, he murmured, "Obito and Nagato probably won't give me much time, so I need to speed up the Project Godhood." Inside a secret underground base of Akatsuki organization, a spiraling whirl appeared in the void, and Obito, without a mask, walked out of it. Zetsu and Toby Sr. came over and looked at Obito's left eye and asked, "How does it feel? Do you have any method to turn this Sharingan into the Manjikyu Sharingan?" Obito indifferently replied, "It's already a Manjikyu Sharingan." Toby Sr. said in a surprised tone, "Already turned into a Manjikyu Sharingan? You really are worthy to have been selected by Madara-sama." Obito shook his head. "No, it was Manjikyu Sharingan, even before I took it back." Having said that, Obito's face showed a trace of emotion and remembered the time when he witnessed Rin's death. "Hatake Kakashi probably awakened the Manjikyu Sharingan at the same time as I did." Even Black Zetsu was surprised, but he chose not to speak anything. A shinobi who is neither an Uchiha nor a Senju or Uzumaki, and doesn't have any close blood relationship with the descendants of Hagoromo, actually managed to awaken the Manjikyu Sharingan? In Black Zetsu's opinion, the talent of Hatake Kakashi is extremely high, one of the best talents to have ever been seen in the shinobi world. Obito doesn't seem to want to talk too much about Hatake Kakashi or the Manjikyu Sharingan, so he turned towards Zetsu and asked, "Forget about these things, let's talk about what's important. How is Nagato's condition? Has he adapted to the transplantation?" White Zetsu said with a smile, "It went unexpectedly good. The Uzumaki clan and the Senju clan are really worthy of being close relatives. His body almost perfectly adapted to Hashirama cells." Obito nodded, but also whispered to himself, "I will have to make sure that Nagato does not get out of hand." Obito is very clear and perfectly understands that if Nagato is too strong it would be difficult to control him. At the same time, he is left with no other choice, because if Nagato were to die, and if the Rinnegan were to be destroyed, then the Project Tsukinomi cannot be completed, so he was left with no choice but to transplant Hashirama cells in Nagato. But because the stronger Nagato will be extremely difficult to control, with Obito's previous strength. This is one of the reasons why Obito took back his left eye, as well as increased his direct control in the Akatsuki organization. Obito then turned towards Toby Sr. and asked, "How is the adaptation of the person inside you?" Toby Sr. crossed both of his arms, and said with an excited tone, "He was a perfect choice." Obito nodded, then said, "How much combat power do you think you have with him inside you?" Toby Sr. thought a little, then said, "I think I will be able to suppress the 5 Kage quite easily." "Even Yagura?" Obito asked again. He knows that it is the case, but he just needs to be sure. Toby Sr. nodded. After all, the one inside me has both the Sharingan and would release, Zetsu said from the side. It was a waste to let him stay with Shimura Danzo. Taking him was the best thing. Although, the fact that he didn't have one arm was a bit of an issue. With Toby wrapped over him, it wouldn't be a problem. Obito nodded. In that case, you can officially join the Akatsuki, and you replace me as the only Toby. Zetsu asked. Then what about you? I will need a new mask, and I will be the one who I am, Uchiha Madara, said Obito with an indifferent tone. All right. Zetsu wasn't much surprised and nodded. Before Madara died, he entrusted Obito to be Madara in his place, and Obito is Madara in his place. Zetsu then said to Obito, the investigation against Amatsukami has still not resulted in any useful information, except for some rumors that have no conclusive evidence to back them up. There is nothing we can find about them. They appear out of nowhere and vanish into nowhere. It's as if they don't exist at all. And what about the Temple of the Land of Sky that disappeared? Asked Obito. Zetsu said, it hasn't been sighted. It's possible that either it has been disposed of somewhere, or maybe it has been hidden too well that we are unable to find it. Continue to investigate. We will find something useful sooner or later, said Obito as he walked towards a glass wall. At a glance, the glass wall is made up of many glass containers, and a few of these glass containers seem to have something floating in them which looks like eyes. Some of them were brought by Madara when he left Konoha. As the former patriarch of the Uchiha clan, Madara obviously had a lot of Sharingan of the dead Uchiha in his hands. So, when he left Konoha, Madara brought them with him. Then many others have been collected by Zetsu clones from the graves of the dead Uchiha, while some of them were stolen by Obito from the root base at the time when Shinichi defected. Looking at the Sharingan in front of him, Obito had a thoughtful expression. After considering for a while, he took off his Akatsuki robe, as well as his combat gear, then said to Zetsu beside him, I need you to transplant a few Sharingan as a sacrifice for using Izanagi. Zetsu asked, but you already have both of your eyes? Where to transplant them? Obito said indifferently, anywhere in my body where they are not directly visible to me. I do not want to see these eyes. Zetsu said, for the maximum effect, the eyes must be connected to the optic nerve. If it is transplanted in other parts of the body, then the effect may decrease. Moreover, there is a distinct possibility of rejection. Obito did not care, and said lightly, it doesn't matter. We have more than enough Sharingan to try multiple times. Obito knows very well that what Zetsu has said is true, but to him it does not matter. The effect ultimately depends on the control of the user, and for him who has Hashirama cells in his body, the effect will certainly be good. Besides, as long as he gets even a single second while using Izanagi, it is more than enough for him. All right, lie down. I will transplant them, said Zetsu as he started with the work, but suddenly he remembered something and said again, by the way, it seems that Nagato's training is going quite smoothly, and he has been planning something recently. Obito quirked his eyebrow and asked, what's he planning? Zetsu said, I am not too sure, but he seems to want to make Konoha feel pain or something along the lines.